All right, thank you and welcome everybody. Our guest star tonight is Juan Castillo, who is our Director of Programming and Operations at WYBC and the guy responsible for pretty much everything you're going to see and hear and what we're doing with the organization. Before I bring Juan in, I wanted to provide a little bit of context of what we're doing now, how we got from where you and I back in our day used to be to how we are now. YBC FM has been a number one or number two station in the market, rating period after rating period. And it's remarkable considering the competition we're up against. But if you can see the slide here, now we had a monster book in the spring and came back a little bit, but we're still tied for number one in the fall. And this has been going on for a long time. And YBC is a huge rating winner. And Juan is very much responsible for all that. So that's where we are now. But how this all happened now, we all remember what it's like to be all student all the time in terms of programming and everything else, including sales. Those of us who were at the station when we started to do progressive rock, and we had a very successful 3-year run of being the only progressive rock station in Connecticut, the only 24-hour station in Connecticut. And we had a good chunk of a young adult audience that the other stations were not getting, and we were. And so that was good for us, but it made the other stations a bit angry. And in 1971, WPLR, which was the old WNHC-FM, they saw the potential of this format and they went to it. And in the process, pretty much knocked us out. They had 50,000 watts. We had 3,000 watts. They had a big promotional budget. We didn't have that. They had a professional full-time staff. We didn't have that. And after a while, it was pretty apparent that we could no longer maintain the market niche that we had in terms of the audience and the sales and everything else. And so our business model had to change. Now, if you see on the slide, it said 2 years of financial uncertainty, not programming uncertainty, but we were trying to all that time do our own sales, and it was getting weaker and weaker. On the plus side, the seeds of urban music, black music, and all that was being sown in the 70s and carrying on into the 80s. And I think Juan and a few of the others can mention the people who are responsible for that, and we'll come back to that. I don't remember the exact year that I joined the Board of Governors. It was in the early 90s. My first meeting, the then chairman, who was a very well-respected broadcast executive, station owner and all that, knew what the value of stations were in the market. He told us basically we faced the possibility of going dark, going off the air, losing our license, and or having to sell because we could not generate our own revenue to the point where we could maintain it. So at that time, the owners of WPLR, General Broadcasting, saw the opportunity that we had in terms of our audience and our programming, which is very good. And they floated the idea to us of entering into a joint sales agreement, or a JSA, whereby they would sell all the advertising on YBC-FM, they would keep all the revenue, and in return would pay us a monthly stipend, which was supposed to cover our expenses. It was a gamble for them and a gamble for us, but in the first year, they made a lot of money off us, and our stipend was minuscule in comparison. So we renegotiated all that. The bottom line is we have had a joint sales agreement, first with General Broadcasting, then Cox Radio, and now with Connoisseur Media, that has given us a solid and consistent revenue stream so we can operate in the black for the most part. But beyond that, that revenue, the WYBC-FM, under Juan's direction, also pays for the Yale student internet radio station, WYBC-X. It enabled us to buy a building for them on Broadway in the heart of campus, and it's worked out really well in that regard. And in the meantime, the FM has continued to be a market winner, a ratings winner, and a powerhouse in the community. It's really an extraordinary story. So why is that? Well, as you can see, a lot of it has to do with the music they're playing. It's a very well-crafted format. Juan can tell you they do a lot of music research. They don't play anything without a purpose. So that's a big part of it. The other part of it is the people who do the shows, the personalities. Now, this DD in the Morning, that's a syndicated show, does very well. But we have our own local staff who are on the air middays and afternoons, ones in the afternoon, and they do a tremendous job. And people relate to them. They are a force in the marketplace.
Your favorite music starts now
on 94.3
WYBC, the rhythm of the city.
Hey, it's Dee Dee in the morning and Wednesday on the show.
Dee Dee, we're giving away more tickets to see Kevin Hart. He's coming to the Total Mortgage Arena in Bridgeport. Plus, I'll play another snippet of my one-on-one conversation with comedian J.J. Williamson, who will be here in Connecticut this weekend at the Funny Bone Comedy Club. What else you got, Trey G?
Hey, you know, it's the ultimate flex when you can tell somebody you own your own bank.
Right.
Ain't that cold? And we got somebody in the building that own their own bank. Real estate guru Benicia Poole Watson. She will be tapping in with some home buying tips that'll help you guide till you're buying your house.
From my casa to your casa.
It's The Workforce with Wanda Coppage on the rhythm of the city. 94.3 WYBC.
WYBC 94.3, the rhythm of the city. I'm Wanda Coppage saying happy birthday to you, celebrating yours today, February 18th. Happy birthday, Janice Myers. Also, Miranda Percy, happy birthday. Jonathan Fitzgerald, McKinley Green. I love that first name, McKinley. Happy birthday to you. And Sharice Arthur, happy birthday. Today's Dr. Dre's birthday. You know, Dr. Dre, NWA, the producer, him. Today is his birthday. We celebrate with him. Also, Vanna White, who has the best job in America. Look good and point. You go, girl. And all of you celebrating yours today, happy birthday.
Party people, this is the time. Good afternoon, motorists. The man you've been listening to is Juan Castillo, a well-known peddler dealer of funk, soul, and R&B vibes. Recently, Castillo made his biggest deal. He acquired the entire crop of the soul vibe and smuggled it into the rhythm of the city. In order to get the appropriate energy and mixology for such an operation, Castillo took on a partner. His name is DJ Platinum. Your mission, should you decide to accept it, is to confront the funk, accept the soul, turn up your radio, ride the vibe of the 5 o'clock drive all the way home.
Mission accepted.
Come on, let's go!
Well, what do you think? Pretty slick, right? Yeah. Now, that's part of the story, but the other big part of the story and the reason that WYBC does so well is what we do and what they do in the community, not just public service on the air, but off the air. And these are just a fraction of the number of events that WYBC does and orchestrates and supports. Juan is out there pretty much, 36 hours a day doing this stuff. And without that, I don't think we would be what we would be. So it's a combination of the really good music, really good personalities, and really important and very visible community service. And that is the formula that has made WYBC, I think, what it is today. Juan is the guy. And as you see on the slide, his journey to radio was not like yours or mine. He was a Brooklynite and an outstanding high school championship basketball player. And I think he also had designs on and playing at the higher levels too. And maybe he can talk about that a little bit. But see there, he had a brush with the law. He did 5 years in prison, drug dealing, not a great thing. But he came out of that being aware of what he could do for other people. Now, you see this thing about Ella Grasso, the late governor of Connecticut. Somehow she became aware of him, and he, through her, became a prominent drug counselor and so forth. He established parole work programs and employment training, and he was a longtime parole officer and all that stuff. So that worked out really well for us. And we have We have dibs on Juan. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
And I have known Juan, and I have worked with Juan for almost 30 years. WYBC would not be around today, let alone as successful today, were it not for him. So, with that in mind, here's Juan Castillo, and let's ask him any questions you want to ask, and he will be glad to talk to you about his experiences in the station. Juan.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Growing up in Brooklyn, I grew up during the 60s and the 70s, and listening to urban radio was extremely exciting during that period of time. New York City had, quite a few radio stations, WBLS, KISS came in later, WNJR out of Jersey, WLIB. So I grew up listening to those stations, and in addition to in the early '60s, listening to your WMCA's and your WABCs and so forth and so on. So, but I was always a radio guy. Talking about, going back a little bit, to my situation. Basketball was everything to me. Like a lot of Brooklyn kids growing up in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, I was very, very good. I was the number one point guard coming out of high school in 1960, 69. I played for a high school team that lost one game in 3 years, national champions 3 years in a row. In fact, came here to Connecticut to play against Hill House in 1968. They were ranked number three, or no, they were ranked number two in the nation, and we were ranked number one. And it was a big shootout. We played at Payne Whitney Gym. Didn't know anything about New Haven, Connecticut. Interestingly enough, it was 60 Minutes. Haywood L. Broom did a story on us for 60 Minutes. And he actually had his camera crew come along with us on the bus up to New Haven, and eventually the show aired. I ended up going to Notre Dame University and to play basketball, but during that time, I was also extremely involved with selling drugs in New York City and Brooklyn. I was the number one drug dealer in Brooklyn, and the police, DEA, was after me, and eventually they found enough information to come to pull me out of Notre Dame. I left campus because I knew they were coming. I was warned by the university. I left and came back to New York. I was not arrested immediately, but shortly after that period of time, they got all their information together and evidence, and I was convicted to 15 to life under the Rockefeller drug laws. While in jail, I decided to change my life. I denounced my gang. I denounced just the streets and started doing some work in jail. Attica. I went to Attica Penitentiary, which you guys all know about what happened there. I was in that yard, when the state police and the National Guards came in. So I saw people dying around me, and it was a moment for me in terms of my life, period. So after that event, Attica decided to bring college courses to their penitentiaries, and they invited El Grasso, our esteemed governor, to come to Attica to discuss with the warden how that program was running. It was the only program of its kind in the United States. And she ended up interviewing me. And when she interviewed me, she was shocked about my life and how it had turned out. So, she gave me her card. I had never. I went to an all-black high school. I lived in an all-black neighborhood. There, I did not interact with too many white people. The first time that I had any real relationships with any white people was when I went to Notre Dame. And other than that, I'm looking at her, and she's giving me her card, saying that when I came out of jail, she would help me. I didn't believe that. I threw away the card. She's not gonna help me. When I went to the board hearing, she came. She came to my parole board hearing, and she told the parole board that if they let me go, that she would bring me to Connecticut and she would establish a job for me. They let me go, which was unbelievable, right? It was a miracle. And I came. I started working for the New Haven Correctional Center, Whaley Avenue Jail. as the director of pre-release programming with my own area, with my own officers, my own counselors, and we would establish relationships with businesses prior to inmates leaving Whaley Avenue Jail. And so I did that for a couple of years. After that, she made me a parole officer. Worked as a parole officer for many years, and then eventually she made me a supervisor. So I began supervising New Haven, Bridgeport, Hartford, areas, Danbury. Shortly before my career ended, I became a part of the head. I became head of the Narcotics State Task Force, and I did that for the last 2 years of my my tenure in the state, and then I retired. When I retired, I didn't know what I was going to do at all. I thought I was going to do coach some basketball, but I realized I wasn't a very good basketball coach. So that went out the door. But in the meantime, I became very good friends with Frankie Crocker, who is a legend in Black radio nationally and especially in New York City. One of my friends who played basketball for the New York Knicks, he played on my basketball team, Mel Davis, introduced me to Frankie. And in addition to that, Vaughn Harper, who was also a legend in New York City with the Quiet Storm, played for Boys High. He came when I came in my freshman year. He was a senior, getting ready to leave to go play for Syracuse. He ended up playing for Syracuse, was All-American, and eventually he played for the Knicks for a little while. But then he ended up in radio, and so we're having lunch with Frankie Crocker and Vaughn Harper and Mel Davis, and we are at that Walt Frazier's restaurant. Frankie Crocker, I knew very well prior to that because I used to bring my stuff up to the station, and they knew me as Juan the drug dealer, right? So when we were when we were having lunch, Frankie says to me, "Have you ever thought about going into radio, Juan? Now that you back out and everything?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." He said, "You got a great voice. You should do radio." Vaughn Harper at the time was doing some imaging work for WYBC, so he was he was lending his voice for some of the legal IDs and stuff. And he said, "Juan, they got this program where you live at in New Haven." And they got this training program, and I think you should check them out. So I did, and I joined the program in 1989, and I did some overnights, and eventually I became very, very good at what I was doing, and I was very happy just doing that. But then, I was there with Ken when it was time to make a change at YBC, and we had 30 days to close the place down. Now, Ken didn't tell the whole story. I'm going to give you the real deal, Holyfield. And the real story was that WYBC, Yale Broadcasting, wanted to get rid of all of the student programming, all of the local programming, and go with satellite radio to touch 24 hours a day. So the training program would have been done, finished, and that's it, right? So the students and the community members decided to boycott WYBC. So we left the station during that period of time, and we went to the streets. We went to the streets. We were on the green, 5,000 people on the green, protesting WYBC being taken over, and no more student programming and no more community programming and so forth and so on. I went on CNN. I went on Channel 8, ABC News. We made a big deal. Every weekend during that period of time, we had a caravan of over 100 cars that were traveling throughout the city with banners and with bullhorns saying, "Save WYBC." Actually, save Spectrum, right? Because that was back in the day. That's what we were called, Spectrum. Eventually, a meeting was set up with the president of Yale, which at the time was Paul Giamatti, who I became very good friends with. Of course, you know him as the president, but also as Major League Baseball commissioner, right? And so he set up a meeting with me and with WYBC and the mayor of the city was also at that meeting. and they tried, and the purpose was to talk me out of the boycott because it was causing a problem. And so at that point we decided so what we negotiated was the touch would run in the morning right up until 5 o'clock, and then at 5 o'clock we would have local programming from 5 until midnight, and then at 9 o'clock we would have the students with new rock and all the other block programming shows that we had. So that was the beginning, right? And so we did okay during that period of time. However, the touch was very bland. It wasn't very local. So eventually, Dick Ferguson, who was vice president of Cox at the time, decided to talk to me about what's the possibility of us developing a program that was localized and so forth and so on. We did that. So we ended up getting Tom Joyner in the morning as a syndicated show with local input. And from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock, we got a local person. And from 3 to 7 local. And then for the rest of the time local. At the time also, students, we had bought the AM. We bought the AM around that period of time. WNAC, we bought that for the students so that they could have their own radio station, right? Since they weren't on the FM anymore. Now, they were still on the FM because we still had students participating in FM urban, and I still have them now, right? So I still have community members, volunteers, and students that are part of our program still to today, right? And they mostly on either overnights or on the weekends, right? So it's still a nice blend, right? So that worked out very well. In addition to that, what we did was we brought in Jay Dixon, who was a renowned production and producer and legendary DJ in New York City that was working for Cox at the time as a program director out of Birmingham, and they helped me to add him to our mix as a consultant, right? Which was different for WYBC, right? Because YBC, the DJs played their own music. There was no research. Basically, you just play whatever you liked, and hopefully you were able to keep an audience, right? What we found was that our ratings were not very good. They were okay, but they weren't very good because of that, right? And so what we did was we began to invest in programming software, Selector, RCS, which we use now, right? We were able to then, use RCS to be able to program our music, load our music, keep track of our music, to make sure that these songs that we were playing were appropriate for WYBC, were in touch with the kind of culture that we were trying to pull off. So that began our rise from around number 7, number 8 in the market, right up to becoming the top 3 in the market, because what we did was basically made sure that the music was correct, but also most important of all, and that came from my involvement with the station prior to us becoming as commercial as we have, that the community had a particular connection to WYBC, and that the community looked for WYBC to not only be entertained, but also to find out what's going on in the community. And in fact, also, if there were any problems in our community, racism, classism, any issues where some inequality was being shown, for us to be on the forefront to make sure that all of that was being covered. We started something that we still continue to today, which is we're out in the community at least 4 times a week with our van. We do more community service outside of PSAs than any radio station in the country, period. That allows that connection to continue to be there, right? We've always been extremely committed also to the African American community, which is the reason we came to be at that period of time, right? Because they did enough research to figure out that, hey, if you stop the block programming, and have more consistent programming that's needed and that is missing from our region, that we be successful. And so that's what we did. So we followed the research and we went in that direction. So our research from that point on, what it has done is made it clear that our radio station, with its efforts to go after 25 to 54 Black women and Black men, and anybody else that comes along for the ride that loves R&B music, that we were the station for them, and we were going to particularly program to that and also speak to that, right? And that worked, and it continues to work today. We are consistently number one, 25-54 women. We are consistently number one and number two persons, 25-54. Our issue is men. We've never really had a strong connection with men in terms of ratings, but good enough for us to have persons 25-54 always be either number one or number two, right? So our focus is Black women 25-54. However, because we program to the whole community at large, right? Every facet and every race that deals in New Haven is coming to WYBC because, number one, we got high ratings, and number two, we get the word out. And number three, we'll come to a Jewish event, we'll come to an Italian event, we'll come to a Black event, we'll go to any event that, whatever, Habitat for Humanity, we're involved with that. I play dominoes with 3 or 4 guys. 2 of the guys were dentists. They asked me, what can we do to help, people in the community? Because since we got, from that conversation playing dominoes that day, it went to every year we service over 5,000 people at different locations throughout the state where people can do extractions. CNN has covered us. People are online for hours before we open up. One of our biggest events. And of course, we also have Back to School, where we partner with the New Haven Public Schools. And we get over 5,000 to 10,000 families that come for backpacks and to get a rally going, to get people excited about going to school. Those are the kinds of events and kinds of things. We're also very much in the clubs. Our DJs are fantastic club DJs. So we're at a dance party station, hence the rhythm of the city. If you want to find out where the baddest parties are, you got to listen to YBC. We continue to be that, right? So on any weekend, 3 of our DJs are spinning with our banners all over the place at the 3 biggest clubs in Connecticut. It's extremely important for us and for me in terms of also understanding that all of my staff, including me, are actually graduates of our training program. I've never had to hire someone from the outside, period, ever. I mean, I interview them, because that's the law. At least it's the law for now, right? But my people are good, man, because you know what? They go through a great training program for free that we offer to the community and to Yale students. And a couple of things happen. One, they automatically become a part of an organization that is very multifaceted in what we do, but also very diverse, right? And so now you got these Yale students and international students and folks from the community. They're all interacting with each other, and so the goal might not be for a lot of students, or might even for community members to eventually do it like I'm doing it, but just that relationship, when I go into that new building, on Broadway, right in the middle of Yale, right? We are the only building on Broadway that's not owned by Yale University. That is actually, why we exist. We exist because our training program is number one for us, right? What's great about all of that too is the fact that all the money that we make goes back into our program. So for instance, that building was, I don't know, I forgot, Ken, it was 1.5 million, I think, by the time it was all said and done with repairs and fixing it up and whatever. The FM raised that money over years of doing great programming, and Yale Broadcasting having the ability to be able to put the money in the bank to put the money on Wall Street so that it could grow. That's what YBC means to me, right? But what it also means to me is that, which is really appropriate right now, right? Is that, my experience through YBC and through New Haven, Connecticut, and to the state of Connecticut is it's based on, what happens when you push racist attitudes aside and give people an opportunity and give people a hand up in order for them to be able to do something with their lives. That's what WYBC story is all about. That's what my story is all about, right? And so, having said that, I'm turning 75 this year. I've been around the station for over 30 years. I know that I can't keep doing this forever. And so one day, I'm gonna have to leave, or I'm gonna have to, take a significant lower role in the company. Well, I've talked to students. I've raised kids, man. I've watched these kids grow up, and now they're on my board. And it's just wonderful, right? But our goal is to one day be in a position to do the best radio ever and continue to do the work that we are doing in the community. And the way to do that is for us to be independent, right? And could you imagine a FM, an AM, an internet radio station that did not rely on any money from any corporate companies like Connoisseur or anybody else, and we didn't have to play any commercials on the radio? The problem with radio today, and it will continue to be, is that we play 11 spots, 11 minutes of commercials every hour, and we lose listeners like crazy because of that, right? Now, radio is still the number one audio situation in America. However, broadcast radio, people listen to us coming to work, going to work, coming home from work, and that's basically it. They don't listen at home anymore. They're watching television, they're on their phones. That's the deal, right? Now, the reason for that is because they're going to alternatives audio streams that don't play 11 minutes of commercial an hour, right? And so if we believe in radio and we believe in the power of what radio can do in terms of providing entertainment, and then at the same time having an opportunity to be able to educate and liberate and to educate, especially folks, and for us to have an educated electorate that can help to make this wonderful American democratic experiment work. You need stations like mine to make sure that that's the case, right? And it's not about being partisan. It's all about just letting people know when bills are coming up. If you voted for so and so and so, then you go over there now and say, listen, I voted for you, and you're getting ready to vote on this. Because let's face it, democracy is about participation, right? If our electorate doesn't participate and hold our political folks accountable, then the American democratic experiment will fail, right? And so it's extremely important for independent radio stations. The fourth estate is under fire right now. It's been under fire. There's a movement to tell folks, period, that we're not truthful, that we don't tell the truth on radio and we don't tell the truth on television. The fourth estate is no longer in a position to be able to investigate our political entities when they do wrong, and when when they're doing some things that are not in a democratic kind of way. And so we're losing that. So it's going to be extremely important in the coming years for our youth and our young people to understand that they can't let that die. Now, if YBC does not look towards the future to become independent of corporations, that is in their best business, it's in their best interest to just make money and put it in their pockets. The money that we make is not going towards a boat for Musk or a boat for Jeff Bezos, or no, that money is going back into our community. giving away scholarships to kids who otherwise would not have the kind of opportunities that they need to have, and so forth and so on. And so that is kind of like where we are. I say this to you though, that all of the work that you guys did back in the day to keep this dream alive, including all the folks in the 80s and 90s. I mean, if I start naming names, I'll be here forever. We just lost Jazzy, who was a fantastic leader in our community, who was at YBC, ended up at WNAC. Because of him, there is me, right? But the one thing that's more important than all is that R&B music has what it has done. It has brought people together, because at our events we got everybody coming to our events. Everybody, no matter, and so and so based on that, right? When I go to the meetings with the students and at the building, like, it's America, man. It's like, it's a tapestry of different folks from the other countries and different and different ethnicities, and it was a beautiful thing, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's what gets me excited every day still at almost 75 years old this year.
Juan, I want to jump in. Forgive me, guys, but I want to
Yes.
jump in because I want to make sure that people get a chance to ask some questions. I'll take a shot, but then I'd love it if others would, unmute yourselves or raise your hand or do whatever you want, and we'll get you in here. I love the idea of going independent, as you put it. I just can't figure out the funding source. Because I look at the NPRs of the world, PBS, public supported stations today. The government's pulling back from them, and they're having basically to run commercials. So I totally agree with you on the intent. I just can't quite figure out how we would get it funded.
Well, let me answer that question, number one, right? When we were, Ken probably is gonna smile about this one. So when we were thinking about buying this building, right? None of us knew anything about real estate, somewhat. I mean, most of us have bought a house, right? But like buying a building, like what we bought, on Broadway, was like, wow, do we really want to do this? Right? And so we looked into it. Luckily we had enough money in the bank that we had saved up for something like this, because we had been looking for a building for a while, right? What happened was that we bought a building with a business that was already in the building. So that business is paying for our mortgage. So imagine if we had 3 other buildings that had businesses that could pay for the mortgage and also pay for the resources that we need to run a radio station. One of the things about nonprofits in America is that, the ones that don't make it are the ones that don't treat their nonprofit as a business. They treat their nonprofit as, okay, we're going to get income from grants and that's it, right? Well, no, you got to treat your business like, because look, by the end of the day, 25 years ago, we went to a radio station in Canada on a trip that we took with the students to look at this radio station. And, and this college radio station, their studio was a cafe, right? And people were walking in there while they live, and they were discussing, and people sitting around drinking coffee and making money. And I'm like, wow. So a radio station can do something like this, right? And so that's listen, I'm dreaming, okay, but hey.
Nah, that's great. All right, let's take some other questions here.
Hey, Kevin, I'll take it.
Hey, Bill.
Here you go, Juan. It's Bill Christmas.
Hey, Bill.
I spent some time down there at Hendry Hall, so I'm familiar with it. And thanks for bringing us up to date, because I had no idea what went on at YBC during the 90s. So it was good to hear that history, because I was unfamiliar with it. And thank you for telling me that you guys are making money, because our best year, we might have made $50,000, $60,000. A bunch of kids running around, and we didn't have the resources that you have to put on a quality program like you're doing. So kudos to you. What one of the questions, and by the way, I remember women were also our, kind of like core audience also back then. We could always depend on, I guess our demographics when we were kids, 18 to 34, right?
Yeah.
Now it would probably be, 60 to 75, but back then it was 18 to 34. And, but how big is the staff now that's on the air, Juan, that you're on, and you have a morning show, an afternoon show?
Yes. Our lineup is we have a full-time producer of the morning show, local, Darryl Huckabee, who's also a YBC alumni, who also worked for Radio One for many, many years as a vice president, programmer. He happened to come back home to take care of his mother. And at the same time, I ended up getting Dee Dee in the morning as a syndicated show. So he makes sure that the local aspect of the Dee Dee morning show is seamless, right? And so he's a full-time staff person, right? And then you got Wanda Coppage, who's on from 10 to 3. She's also full-time. And then myself from 3 to 7, I'm full-time. We have a part-timer in the evenings, and we have 4 weekenders who are part-timers who are paid. The rest of the staff are volunteers. So that's kind of how we handle that. Yeah.
All the folks are on staff. Excuse me. All the people that are on staff are YBC trainees. You trained them all through their training program?
Yes.
And do you open up the training that's still today to like broadcast to say, come on down and we'll train you? And even if you don't have the spot? Gotcha.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody could be everybody. If you talk to anybody on the street, they'll tell you that they'll tell you that they could do radio. They're not going to tell you they could do television, and they're not going to tell you they could play in the NBA, and all that. But they'll say, "Hey, I think I could do what they do," right? So most people would love to be on radio because they think they could do it, right? Our training program is very, very good, and there are some people that don't have it in them; it's not in their genes, but we pull it out of them, right? I was one of those people. I sounded terrible on my first show, terrible. I came home. I told my wife I was never going back. She told me, you never quit anything, Juan. You going back. And I went back, and the rest is history. But the reality of it all is that that's the main purpose, man. And it's a beautiful thing. Beautiful.
I have a question. This is Dawn Slade. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes, Dawn.
Go ahead.
I've been looking for you, Dawn.
I'm here. I'm just not on camera. I'll get on camera. But my question is, so radio is so much different from when I was back there. And I went through the training program too. So you said that the training program is still around. So can an old head like me sign up for the training program and go through? Because it's totally, back in the day, we were slip queuing albums, and we had a cart machine. And I know it's totally, completely different now. So if I was interested in saying I want to be on YBC, how can I get into the training program?
Well, 2 things. One, you're a former YBCer, so our regular training program and that the students run, you already been through that 3 or 4 times in your lifetime, right? So, I mean, you know how to run a board. I
did, but it's different now.
Well, it's different now in this sense. It's even easier now because just to give you this is good. This is a good question. Well, first of all, let me say this. When the pandemic hit, everybody went home. We built studios for every DJ that we have on staff. So everyone that is on our staff broadcast from home or their dorm or somewhere. They don't come into the studio. We have a studio for just in case we call it Zeta. It's a Zeta program. What Zeta allows you to do is to from your studio at home, you can go live on the radio. You can see all the music coming in. We have telephones, lines that go through your computer. You can do contesting. You can answer the phone just like if you were in a studio in downtown New Haven or anywhere else, right? So that's the story right there. So no one is in the studio. Now, we do have a studio at Connoisseur Media in Milford that serves as a studio in case Zeta goes down. If Zeta goes down, people get in their cars and drive to Milford and do their shows from that studio.
Okay.
We might do some interviews in that studio every once in a while, but we do most of our interviews. We use virtual, for that, and we use StreamYard, in some cases Zoom if somebody can't get on StreamYard. The labels love it. The artists love it because they don't have to travel, so we get Beyonce and anybody else quickly because they don't have to come all the way up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody like you, right, is basically all about, at this point, right, setting you up with a home studio and teaching you the Zeta system, right? How to how to maneuver through the Zeta system, because the music is already programmed. You're not playing your own music. We program the music, and the reason for that is all of us, including me, who were at a time in radio where we could program our own music, right? The difference between being number one and being number 6 or number 7 is every record that you play, your audience, at least 90% of your audience better like it. Because if they don't like it, today they have too many other ways to leave your radio station too. Every new record that comes before us, sent by the labels, by local artists, whoever, right? That record goes through a screening. That record does not get played because I like it, or because my consultant likes it, or because my music staff likes it, right? No. What it does is that if we like the record enough that we want to put it into research. Now, what is that, right? What happens is that we partner with companies, and it's one in particular that we're using right now. One of our students started this new company where they research music for radio stations, and it's a wonderful thing because now we're working with one of our alumni, right? It's a beautiful thing. So what happens is that if Chris Brown comes out with a record and Joe Blow from New Haven comes out with a record, we take both those records and we give it to the company. The company takes the record and query 2,500 of our listeners. 1 to 10, I love it 10, I don't like it 1. Okay. If that record comes back and it's like 70% by our audience, then it gets consideration to go into rotation based on songs that we are also testing all the time. So we not only do we test new music, we also test music that's already in rotation. So that's how we determine if a song is ready to come out. Because then we put that record back out to the 2,500 and say, listen, you still like this record? Or are you tired of this record? So now we got a tired score, right? If the tired score is high, the record goes out and a new record goes in, right? Now, the moment that we started doing research on music, as much as I did not like it, I gotta be honest with you, I did not like it. I like it now because it's helping me win. Because every one of those records, when we go to Nielsen and we look at the data and we look at what's going on, for instance, right? I can go to Nielsen right now and find out if there's a particular record that's been failing, right? Why has it been failing? So now we look at it played at 10:30 on Wanda's show, right? When she started, there were like 7,000 people listening to Wanda. She played the record, all of a sudden it dropped to 2,000. That tells us, you know what? They didn't like that record.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the kind of information that we are getting in order to help us to play the right music so people don't switch the channel. In addition to that, right? Our mic breaks are between 30 seconds and a minute. And you better believe it. If you went beyond 30 seconds, 40 seconds on your mic break and you was talking about nothing, and you weren't talking about something that the person that's listening wants to keep on listening to whatever you're saying, then you got a problem, right? Now, if you talk for a minute, but that mic break was relevant to our audience, I got no problems with that. But you ain't talking for a minute and a half, and you ain't talking for 2 minutes, right? Because personality radio is dead as we knew it in the past. It died. Because of the fact that people's attention span is very, very limited today. And if you don't provide them with something quick, where they put a smile on their face, or they writing down some information that you're giving them because it's important to them, they're gone. Because you got to remember, they already know that after you finish talking, here comes 5 minutes of damn commercials. We didn't care about that back in the day because you know what? They didn't have no other options. Today, they got Sirius, they got Pandora, they got all of that, right? Again, right? We did a great job back then without those resources. Matter of fact, when you were on the air back in the day, I never turned the radio station when you were on.
I know, because it was me.
No, it wasn't just that, Dawn. It was the music. It was the music you were playing.
Right.
And I gotta be honest with you, I can't remember a record that you played that I wanted to change because the record wasn't any good.
Because we had a tip sheet. Bill Christmas made us have a tip sheet, and that music was selected. It was pretty much what's happening today is more scientific, but pretty much that's what Bill did back in the day. He made sure that the music that we played people liked. So he did that. And so when we played the music, we had a small element where we could put our own personality in there, but for the most part, we had a uniform sound. And this seems like right now the music is just completely selected based on what people like and what people don't like.
Right. And we had Bill on a year or so ago with several of you guys actually, and that was quite a. Everybody's using the technology of their day, which what you're doing today, Juan. I want to make sure we get some other folks in here too. This is a great question. I'm sorry. Was that Mike Bonet? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Juan. Mike Bonet here, fellow Brooklynite also.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing? My question is, you touched on it a little bit when you talked about the training program, because we know that not everyone who goes through the training program can get on the air. So I have two kind of related questions. One question is going to be, for those who go through the training program, what types of other avenues? You mentioned the person who started the music research business, but what other things have you seen people go through training program who don't necessarily go on to WYBC get into? And related to that, one aspect people might get into is what is your linkage or competitiveness, I should say, with the growing podcast environment and sphere as relates to YBC, or is there any at all?
Okay, so the first question, one of the good things about our training program is that the students, they put on concerts. They have engineers that learn engineering while they're there, and of course, they have more shows that would allow someone like Yunji Denise, who is one of our graduates, and she is now White House correspondent for ABC, right? So she learned that at YBC, and she also came on air with me late night, right? But she always loved the news, and she did a lot of the news over on the AM, and eventually she did some news on our internet radio station. So those are the kinds of opportunities that people can learn, and then one of the biggest things is that sales, right? Like that's where the money is, right? My sales team are making millions and millions of dollars off us, especially in our community. I'm talking about the African American community. We tend to not want to go to jobs where there's commissions, we want to make sure that we get paid that every week. So we don't take that kind of gamble in order for us to make the kind of money that sales requires. And not only that, I teach people that if you want to become a general manager of a radio station, there are very few program directors that go from program director to general manager. General managers are usually chosen from the sales department, right? Because hey, they're making the money. And so we try to convince folks to understand that factor, right? Yeah, you can have a lot of fun on the radio, talking on the mic and talking to your friends and all that, right? But it's a difference between driving, a Maserati versus, you're driving some Honda or something. You know what I mean? And that's the reality of this. You go into the parking lot and you see all the cars of all the salespeople, and you see the ones that the staff is winning. Nah. No comparison whatsoever. So yeah. Does that answer your question, or is there anything else? What high school did you go to in Brooklyn, man?
I went to Brooklyn Tech.
Oh yeah, we used to beat y'all so bad.
We're known for sports.
Kevin McEwen, you're there. You had your hand up. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, Juan, you spoke correctly, I think, about the importance of the stations being independent. I have a question about the relationship, if any, currently between WYBC-FM and Yale University. Now, I'm an old member of the Slip Cue Club, and
nice.
In the late 60s, we operated out of Henry Hall with free rent. I don't think we paid the electric bill. The transmitter was up at the top of the gym. I think it was sucking Yale power, too.
That's right.
Now, that relationship changed a lot when Yale booted us out of Henry Hall. I have to say, though, I don't think Yale ever put its thumb down on us as students running the station. I saw one of the slides you ran about a community program you're running, a sales thing for Black-owned businesses with WYBC, and it looked like the Yale logo. So what is that relationship?
Well, the president of Yale, I got to know him very well. And, during the Black Lives Matter situation, he called me and said, hey, I want to sit down and talk to you, Juan, about what can we do at Yale, right? And I said to him, well, there's a lot of small Black-owned businesses in New Haven that could use some help, but they really can't afford to advertise on WYBC. We're number one radio station, so our rates are very high, And so he said, well, okay, well, what about this? Why don't Yale University pay for their advertisement for a particular, period of time? And then the money, then we're also helping you by spending money with your station, right? So that's how that developed. And it's a great program. And we've had it now for, about 3 years now. Yeah.
So Juan, does that Yale money go to Connoisseur, or does it go directly to WYBC?
It goes to both of us because, we get a piece of all the money that goes to Connoisseur.
You mentioned the stipend, so I thought the money from Connoisseur might be a flat fee every year.
It is a flat fee, but what I'm saying, it's a flat fee. But all income that I help Connoisseur and YBC make is important to the company, because when it's time to renegotiate the contract, if YBC has not been selling, then now my company's in a position where now they can talk about giving us less. So the more money that we make, the better negotiating power for us to get that flat fee to go up or down, depending on. So what has happened is that over the years, program directors and general managers of radio stations have now become brand managers. They're no longer do you have your own little area, right? You don't. So for instance, at Connoisseur, that culture is based on everybody is a salesperson. Everybody, when they're running around the neighborhood, the contacts that they got is their mandate to bring in more income. And that's good for me because I hate sales. But guess what? I hate sales because if I went in there to talk to a client by myself, I I don't have the passion to go into their pocket and take their money. What works is when one of my sales staff says, Juan, I'm getting ready to go over here to Brantford, Hyundai, and I want you to come with me. Good. I put on my stuff. I go in there, and that salesperson sits there and says, this is Juan Castillo. He's going to talk to you about the station, And by the time I'm finished, all the salesperson does is says, what do what do you think? Oh, I love it. Sign here. And it's done. Because some other salespeople do have the passion and they don't call me as much. Got to remember now, Connoisseur Media has got all white stations. We only have one black salesperson on staff. So, but everybody sells YBC and the rest of the stations.
So if I'm a black business in New Haven and I want to buy time on WYBC specifically,
yes,
current setup, can I do that? Or do I end up buying a mix of spots on various stations, most of which may not deliver my audience?
Well, yes. I mean, yes and no, right? So understand this. This is great question, right? Because everybody's talking digital, right? There's no data for digital that digital works great, right? We got data in broadcast radio that radio works well, but they don't. But they've been convinced, right, that digital is important, that you need to be on YouTube and you need to be on Spotify. And so now what happens is that companies are coming to us looking for radio, but they also are looking for digital. So now Connoisseur's been smart. Connoisseur has Ferocious Media, which is part of the sales team, right? Ferocious Media is set up to do video, to handle, to manage your social media presence and branding. So they're the middleman to get you on YouTube, because these businesses don't know how to do all of that, right? And to also handle all your posting on social media. So typical, I'm a company, I want to be on YBC. Okay, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to be on YBC, but, I've heard about this digital thing. Okay, let me give you, all right, so how much money you willing to spend? Well, I'm willing to spend $5,000 a month. Okay, good. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to spend $2,000 on YBC, because you can get all the black people on YBC. You're going to spend another $1,000 on PLR, because you can get all the white men from PLR. You can spend another $1,000 with Star, because you're going to get all the white women on Star. And then you can spend the rest of the money on digital, and we'll set all that up for you. That's a typical conversation. So now, is it in the best interest of WYBC? Probably not. However, it is in the best interest long term. So for instance, like when it's time to renegotiate the contract, I'm familiar enough with the numbers for me to be able to say to them, look, man, you giving us $1 million. This is what we brought in last year, in addition to all your digital and all of that. And not only that, we're the number one radio station in the market. So we put you in a position where me and PLR are owning the market. So that is what typically is the story.
Let me jump in because we're running our time. But Dick, you actually put together, I think, was it the first or the second of the JSAs, whatever. But I just wondered if you had any questions for Juan.
No,
Dick Ferguson. Hey, man.
Yeah. So Juan and I go way back to the very beginning.
That's my hero.
Along with Ken DeVoe. And I have so enjoyed listening and to this whole thing and watching it. And what's been done with YBC is really, really one of the great radio success stories. I mean, the that whole relationship with my old company, Connoisseur, and all that, really takes the whole onus of sales and everything, off your back, and provides you with a great revenue stream. And you can combine up with other radio stations. They benefit from having YBC in their portfolio and vice versa. And the fact that I'm sitting here tonight after all these years, listening to Juan spin these stories and talk about this amazing radio station is, I'm not going to say it brings tears to my eyes, but it's pretty cool, I got to tell you. Thank you.
That's really great.
Thank you, Dick.
Let me ask if others want to raise their hand. Yeah, please. Go ahead, Natasha.
Hi, Juan.
Hello.
You know me as Tasha Renee.
Hey, hi.
Back in the 90s, you told me that I was the fastest student to go from training to the radio.
That's right.
And first, I want to thank you because you always walked the walk. As a student at Yale who was from Harlem, and you were my family. You weren't just there as someone to train me in radio, but there were times when you helped me learn how to drive. You took me into the community to have the outreach that I wanted to have with Black and Brown people. We used to go and broadcast live. We went up to Massachusetts just to go to a club and broadcast live, dance for 2 songs, and then leave.
Yep.
And I appreciate that. It's something that I have carried with me for all these years, now being 27 years since I've graduated from Yale. My question to you now as a physician is, and really looking at what's happening in healthcare, what's happening with maternal morbidity and mortality, particularly among Black women. Is there the space for the healthcare minute? So the mic breaks are 30 seconds to a minute, as you mentioned. Are we having a space there to really educate our listeners on the truth about their health, about prevention? Kind of where are we in that space? And I'm also interested in taking the updated training course too.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just like Dawn.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. In addition to, we still got the electric drum, right? So if you guys remember the electric drum, which is a 40-minute public affairs show that still does what it always did, that provides 40 minutes of talk without any music to deal with issues that affect our community, as you mentioned. It's interesting that you just mentioned that you're a doctor. We're getting ready to do a program with the help of the Walter Luckett Foundation, who we work really close with, and it's gonna be Black Doctors Day, right? And so what we're gonna do is we're going to bring in doctors from all over Connecticut, and we are going to bring in young people that are interested or need to be interested into the health in the health fields. And it's going to be similar to what we did with the dentist, with the whole dentist thing, where we're going to have, the kids take vitals and stuff like that, right? We're still working on what those workshops are going to look like, right? But so yes, we are definitely still doing all of that. We have a relationship with Sisters Journey, which is an organization that helps cancer survivors, right? Breast cancer survivors. And every month we have a survivor of the month, and they have a calendar that they sell to raise funds for their organization. And so every month, WYBC, we highlight a survivor, right? And we interview that survivor on the air to talk about their journey. So those are the that's more than a minute, and those are okay. Juan is not gonna take you off the air for that. You know. But yeah, so so we still got all of that and then some involved with that. Yep.
If you ever
Great
need help
question.
on that end, I'm definitely interested in.
Well, this doctor's name,
Yeah.
we got to talk.
Yes.
You know, we definitely got to talk. Absolutely.
All right, guys, we got a hand up. Melody, are you still there?
Juan's Melody Big Pen.
Oh wow! What's up, fam?
Know that I was part of the team years ago,
Yes.
and I'm still working on with Sister's Journey. And tell your wife I said hello. I know things are different, but I miss her. But I want to go back to the beginning of your story. I'd like to know who won that game in New Haven that you played.
Boys High beat Hill House by 2 points.
Okay.
We beat them at the buzzer. I stole the ball and threw it down to Mel Davis, who scored the 2 points. Mel Davis eventually became the #1 pick for the New York Knicks. I guarded a guy named Kervin Lewis, who I thought Kervin was one of the best players in New Haven history. He got me in foul trouble in the first 5 minutes of the game. I ended up with 3 fouls, but my coach didn't take me out. But he was the best player I ever played against ever in my life.
I'm glad you enjoyed your time there.
Yes, it was great.
But next year you probably would have been playing cross, and score would have been different.
Probably, maybe, yeah. Yep.
All right, now Ken, I think you had your hand up.
Juan, a quick basketball question. At the beginning, you talked about the record of your high school team, or wins, loss. What was it again? How few games you lost?
We only lost 1 game in 3 years.
Okay, I mentioned that because I played for my high school. We won 3 games in 2 years. That's all I got to say about that.
Ed and Susan, do you guys have anything to say?
Just to say thank you to Juan for sharing his time with us this evening. Susie and I had a lovely lunch with Juan about 8 years ago with Laura Tell. And that was the first time I met the force of nature that is Juan Castillo. And God bless you, and long may you run, or as long as you're comfortable running. It's been you've done some remarkable things for the community and certainly for the station. So thank you from all of us.
And I just want to say something real quick. Please. That I am already in the process of working with my replacement. Daryl Huckabee is going to be the new Juan in a couple of years. And so I'm excited about that. He's involved in the community a whole lot more than me right now because I slowed down. But he'll be the next one. Yeah, so to let everybody know.
Please warn Daryl that he'll have to meet the alumni at some point.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
he doesn't get off scot-free. So
absolutely. Yeah.
All right, you guys. Before we quit for the evening, anybody else or? Sounds good. Juan, you have go ahead.
I just want say one thing. Juan, I did not know that you were your age. You look great for you. I mean, I had no idea that you were that old.
No, we
in a
put
good way.
We put the filter on them, Dawn. We put the 20 years younger filter on them. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you.
Fascinating. I mean, just great. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right,
terrific.
Take care.
Great. Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much.
You. I didn't talk much, but that's okay. I'm listening and processing.
Okay. Thank you.